Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Use Predictive Marketing to Get a Competitive Edge in 2018, featuring Marketo's Accelerate partner, Mintigo. A few housekeeping items before we get started. We are recording this webinar, and we'll be sending out the slides and recording after the webinar concludes. So if you missed something or you want to leave early, don't worry, we'll send this out. If you have a question, please type it in the chat box, and we'll try and get to it during the live portion of the Q&A at the end of the webinar. And if you're posting to social, please make sure to use the hashtag MKTGNation at Marketo or at Mintigo. I am thrilled to have Erin Peterson here today, who is the VP of Customer Experience at Mintigo. Mintigo's predictive platform helps deliver high-value, quality audiences to you, the marketer, to help close bigger deals faster. And my name is Lizzy Funk, and I'm a Senior Manager of Marketing at Marketo. I focus on the enterprise side of demand gen. I've also implemented account-based marketing at quite a few companies and have seen the value of predictive marketing in not only identifying the right accounts, but also throughout the entire ABM strategy. Let's take a look at what we're going to go over today. First, we're going to talk about what is predictive marketing, and then go over some trends for 2018 around predictive marketing, and then into the fun part of how you can use predictive marketing, including AI, in your actual campaigns. And then hopefully we'll have time to get to some of your questions. And with that, I'll pass it on over to Erin.
Thanks, Lizzy. So I want to start with just a baseline on what is predictive. We typically talk about predictive analytics and predictive marketing interchangeably, and there is a little bit of a difference. For the purposes of today, we'll usually use the word predictive or predictive marketing, but where this begins is predictive analytics, which is the use of information from the past to make predictions about the future. And that's going to leverage all manner of data science and machine learning and AI. But the goal is to come out with some ability to anticipate what a future action might be taken based on the past. Predictive marketing is downstream from that, fueled by predictive analytics, and allows us to guide or optimize our marketing strategies or our tactics or engagements to predict which actions have a high probability for success or failure. So Predictive Marketing 101 is essentially leveraging the power of predictive analytics to find your buyers faster and then deliver the right content to the right audience via the right channel at the right time. So what about artificial intelligence? I think an easy way to illustrate this is that one of Mintigo's customers built the original predictive models for big banks, big oil, and Fortune 100 companies over a decade ago when he ran customer insights and marketing automation at Accenture. The cost for those models back then often crept into six figures and took a room full of PhDs to build over the course of weeks or even frequently months. That same customer is now a CMO at a high-growth startup in San Francisco, and for a fraction of what he used to charge his clients, he's able to use Mintigo with access to unlimited modeling and a SaaS platform and can generate each of those same types of models in a matter of minutes. So more so than just the ability to generate things, it's the speed and agility that allows a time like his to test and iterate on the fly and leverage what's uncovered by AI to inform their next question. So AI is not just about things happening behind the scenes in black boxes, but it's really the ability of a machine to learn human-like processes and develop its own outputs that are not necessarily what it's programmed to do.
And so why is now the time for predictive marketing? Erin and I were just talking about this before the webinar. A serious decision to see predictive being more important, or people are being more interested in predictive marketing than ABM these days. And why is that? It's all because our buyers are now expecting these one-on-one conversations. I think we all know that batch and blast campaigns are now long gone, and we know personalization is where we should be focusing nowadays. But doing personalization right by really listening to your audience is even more important. So here are a few stats that show you how important it is to engage with your audience based on insights you gather from listening to your audience. First, 73% of people think brands must have a deep understanding of their needs in order to engage them successfully. Again, this isn't just what your audience is telling you, job title, location, etc., but it's more about what they might not be telling you, but we should actually know. Discovering buying intent before engaging is actually very effective. Next, 65% say that brands could do a better job of aligning their engagement activities with their preferences. If I'm only engaging via social, stop engaging with me via email. Or if I've shown interest in one product, stop marketing the other product to me. And then the last stat is 66% expect all interactions with a brand to be personalized. This means every channel, every message, every web page visit needs to be for that specific person you're targeting. So what can Predictive help you with to become a brand that your audience wants to engage with and knows that they understand you, your needs, and your intent? The first is around predicting buying propensity and prioritizing leads. Erin has talked a little bit about this already, but Predictive takes into account all the data that you have as well as thousands of other marketing indicators to help you prioritize the best accounts to target based on the needs and interests of your product. People you start targeting based on predictive marketing may not even know that they need your product. We'll end up with a high buying propensity based on those statistical algorithms. Next, identify best audiences to target with account-based marketing. In that same vein, you can start using this data to build out your ABM strategy. The first step in ABM is choosing your account list, and Predictive is a really great way to help you choose those accounts. So you aren't relying on data you might not trust or your sales team to choose those accounts, because as marketers, we definitely don't want that. Next is guiding segmentation and persona building. Your audience is requiring this personalized experience based on their interests and intent, and the only way to do this at scale is with building out segmentation and persona building. And communicating on that personal level just got a whole lot easier with this to do at scale. Next is uncovering cross-sell and upsell opportunities. The great thing about Predictive is that it doesn't just stop with new business. If you sell more than one product, Predictive can really help you uncover which of your current customers could be good candidates for cross-sell and upsell. And finally, enabling sales with intelligence. The best sellers are helpers. Without a ton of work from marketing, predictive analytics and marketing can really help your sales team decide which accounts to pursue right away and which ones not to pursue, and to put really more focus on what that account's interest or intent is.
All right, so let's talk about some of the myths of Predictive. I listed out a couple of the things that we hear all the time at Mintigo from prospects that are really curious, but they've got anxiety or concerns about what it's going to be like to go implement Predictive in their own environment and the difference it's going to make in their business. So number one is that Predictive is only for large and mature enterprise customers. So for us, what we find is that for small companies where budgets and teams run lead, there's even less buffer in many cases for investments not to return. And a single investment in Predictive that improves overall performance of the other spend by 10 to 100 to even 1,000% in specific campaigns is extremely powerful. Number two is that it's very time and resource intensive to implement. So implementation is actually super simple, and there are so many use cases that initial value can be gleaned in hours in the case of data enrichment, or hours and days in the case of model implementation. That there are so many applications of Predictive also means there are ways to scale and add even more value over time, even if you just want to start with a very simple inbound lead scoring model to begin. Number three is that models are based on machine guesswork and therefore can be inaccurate. So yes, predictive modeling done well is super robust and complex, but there are very simple ways to evaluate the performance of a model even before it's put into production, and even more ways to do so once it's operationalized, which I'll share later in our webinar. And number four is that before starting, you need a large quantity of very clean data. So I've never had a very large quantity of very clean data, and I doubt anyone else on this webinar has either. I've had one or the other, but never both at the same time. So part of the value of solutions like Mintigo is that we enrich your data set with our own data. So many workflows like rerouting and segmentation and nurture rely on clean or standardized data. And by using what we know about your prospects or customers, you're not beholden to them telling you that they live in Afghanistan because it's at the top of the alphabet and work in the automotive industry and have 1 to 10 employees. So using Predictive can help you from introducing dirty data in the first place, and we can always use proxies for modeling from our own data set if yours is just too much of a mess at the moment. Perfect. So next thing we wanted to do was really address your predictive marketing questions head on. And the way we thought would be fun to start this is actually to do a little bit of analysis of the registration list for our webinar and talk a little bit about why you specifically care about predictive. So these are different data points about your companies aggregated together. And we thought we'd just talk through this a little bit to set the context for what you might do with predictive in your own environment. So 84% of your companies are using Google Analytics. What this tells us is you're investing in tracking the performance of your website, your programs, et cetera, using predictive to identify even more granular or less obvious patterns could really help you optimize your investments. 61% of you have intent around content marketing. So we'll go into intent a little bit later, but intent at Mintigo is a measurement of a sustained spike in third-party research on a specific topic as measured against your company's baseline. So what's normal at Mintigo and what's normal at Marketo might be a little bit different than what's normal for you. So what we're looking at here with intent is a sustained spike in interest and research from multiple people over multiple days at your company around content marketing. And the constant question is always what content is most likely to resonate with your buyers. It's super time intensive to create, and you wouldn't want to put something out there that's distraction from your true message. So predictive can help you identify the topics that will drive the most dollars and the most engagement from your audience. 72% of you have current employees in your company with strategic planning or analyst job titles. Your marketing spend is being scrutinized and your budgets are in large part dependent on the performance of your programs. Oftentimes if marketing is underperforming, dollars will shift to sales headcount, for example, and those folks will take on a greater responsibility for the pipeline. So if you can prove what's working or not, it's much easier to get investments funded and ensure higher ROI from what you do. And then CSMs. So 69% of you have or are hiring for customer success positions. What's really interesting here is that the same data that's valuable for you to be able to see who's in market to buy and who might be a good person to reach out to and what topics to discuss with them is extremely valuable post-sales because your CSMs are focusing on retention and upsell. So if you knew when a customer was looking at another solution that you offer or was interested in a topic that you could help educate them on and ultimately guide them to buy a solution from you on, that would be super valuable for your CSMs. And likewise, if you knew that they were looking at alternate vendors, that's a huge retention risk. And even if you have a low engagement style of post-sales customer support, that might be a really good trigger to put that person into a more high-touch management from customer success.
Great. The next thing we want to talk about is how account-based marketing and predictive work together. We all know how broadly adopted account-based marketing is these days as marketers are really starting to see the success in moving away from targeting leads and into targeting accounts, hence the A in account-based marketing. So predictive is a really effective overlay to your ABM strategy at each stage. And those stages include identifying the right accounts with the most buying propensity or intent for your product, even if they don't know it yet, then choosing the best personas to target within those top accounts, tailoring that message across accounts based on who they are and what they're interested in, what they want, aligning across functions such as sales, finance, marketing, to deliver that consistent experience across the entire journey, and finally that campaign execution and measurement. Erin, would you like to add a little bit more color to this?
Yeah, definitely. So ICP, or ideal customer profile, in a traditional sense would include things like geolocation, revenue, employee count, or industry. But there's so much more that really defines your ideal customer. So if you think of the items we just shared on our last slide about Google Analytics and customer success, I could do a way better job of targeting you and getting you to engage if I knew those things about you more so than just your core firmographics. Great marketing in general is also about delivering intimate experiences to your audience at scale. So with ABM, the level of precision has to be even greater. You're investing more dollars into a smaller audience, and you need all of your engagements to resonate. The combination of predictive models to prioritize the right accounts and data to ensure your message is spot on is really key. And then no one likes receiving or, quite frankly, making an SDR call that begins with, could you tell me how to sell you something over the next couple of minutes? Tell me a little bit about your company. Tell me about your challenges. It feels like a really big ask of somebody with whom you don't yet have credibility or a relationship or have earned the right to ask of their time that way. So thankfully, because at least a few things I know I learned in kindergarten, I know, as Lizzy said earlier, that everyone loves a helper. So by equipping your marketing and sales teams to target the right audiences with the right message, they become helpers and then heroes, and everyone wins. How does predictive marketing help identify and target the right accounts? So I know we're talking about ABM, but let me give you a B2C example to illustrate it that I think we can all relate to. Legend was born out of research back in 1992 that helped shift how we think about buying habits. The story went that men between ages 30 and 40 purchasing diapers at a certain day and time of the week were most likely to also have beer in their carts, thus motivating stores to relocate their diaper aisle closer to their beer aisle, driving instant 35% increase in the sales of both. While this particular anecdote was not proven out in testing, it does help illustrate how modern marketers think about knowing our audience and delivering them the right offer via the right channel, or aisle as it were, at the right time. In ABM, the idea is not to sell all things to all people, but rather to hone in on a very specific audience with whom you're seeking to make a specific connection, and ideally one that is highly successful and will generate significant impact to your business.
So since all of you guys are marketers, you're probably wondering how you can actually apply predictive marketing to your specific campaigns. And you can really use predictive at each stage of the funnel for campaign execution. So at the top of the funnel, when you're trying to drive awareness with your top accounts, you can use something like digital ad campaigns to those top accounts with content based on industry, company size, etc. At the middle of the funnel, when you're trying to generate some interest with those top accounts, you can really start using multi-channel nurture campaigns based on interest, choosing the best channel, asset, content type, etc. for your audience. At the bottom of the funnel, when you're trying to create these meetings for sales, you can really use predictive to help sales prioritize the accounts to target with greater close rates. You can generate field events in regions with targeted for your top accounts to increase that engagement. And then we can't forget about customers. You can use predictive marketing to help customers identify opportunities for cross-sell and upsell. So you can run product-specific campaigns based on predictive product interest, and you can tailor that message based on which additional product could benefit these accounts. Next, Erin is going to get into what kind of success metrics you can expect when overlaying predictive marketing into your current strategy, including higher ASP, average selling price, increased conversions, and more.
Thanks, Lizzy. So this is really fun. This is what I get to do all day long. I was a marketer my whole career, and for the very first time in my life was so compelled by part of my tech stack, which was predictive, that I quit my day job and came over to run customer success at Mintigo. So what I wanted to share here is just a couple of examples, because I think these things are most easily understood when they're really illustrated. So what you're looking at here, when we do testing, one of the easiest ways to evaluate model performance and impact is to compare leads or accounts ranked A and B, which are sort of the higher two cohorts, versus those that are ranked C and D. And as you see in these customer results, the model implemented made significant impacts on revenue and could be tracked across each stage of the funnel. What was really noteworthy to our client here was that how many poor quality leads made it initially to MQL, but then of course failed to convert at the end. So on the right side, you'll see a significantly higher volume of C and D leads coming in, but a significantly lower number of them coming to a contracted or a closed won status. So what our customer was focused on here as an output was how to actually improve the number of A and B leads coming in the first place. And as Lizzy was mentioning in that top of funnel example, this could be something like finding specific folks to target through early stage engagement that are very specific as a match to their business, from not just core firmographics to what job titles they have or what's in their tech stack. And the more of those folks that they get in, they know that they can propel them into success. Another example, this is from Workfront, which is a loved, beloved joint customer of Marketo and Mintigo, and it's very specific, so I wanted to make note of where this is coming from. This was actually shared at last year's Marketo Summit of how Workfront created their ABM strategy using Predictive. And what's really neat here is how they took a global list and filtered it down with traditional firmographics like geo-targeting and revenue and number of employees. And then the outputs of this were further sliced with models from Mintigo, reflected as the outputs of the Workfront 6000 and the Workfront 2400. So this layered in Mintigo ranks, so the actual predictive ranks, but also specific indicators that they knew were highly correlated with success in their business. Each of their AEs was guaranteed a minimum number of Workfront 6000 accounts, and they actually carry a specific quota against that set of accounts. This was launched in 2016 and had tremendous impact on their business, but with further tuning in 2017 actually proved out even stronger results. So I think this is a really great example of how you can get started with something and at least get something in motion. You don't have to have all of it figured out up front, but you can continue to iterate and improve on the models themselves, how they're operationalized, and drive increasingly fantastic results over time. The next example I wanted to share is around SEM optimization. Not all hits when you're doing SEM are actually good hits. A great example of this, I used to work for a company that sold application delivery software, and sometimes we would get hits for app delivery where someone thought we were going to deliver them appetizers. So what really matters here is not just the hit itself, but that it's optimized by fit, that the person that's being targeted and engaging with you is the person that you want. And being able to do real-time adjustments to your SEM campaigns is an incredible way to glean extra value. So you're not just looking at which ads get traction, but those with impressions that are really high quality, and then you can actually shift your spend toward them. This is an example of just pre and post predictive with Mintigo. The original results of this campaign were okay. They weren't fantastic, but the results afterward were significantly improved. This could continue to be tuned over time, and again, because you can have all of these layers of not just the fit or the intent, but the specific indicators, you can actually deliver a hyper-specific message to somebody with whom it's really going to make a great impression, and then you feel like a perfect match to them, even if you actually could solve more problems than just the one that they're facing right now. Another great use case for predictive is outbound prospecting. Cold calling would typically go to the bottom of the list of any high ROI marketing or sales strategy, but this is a really great application of predictive, specifically around sourcing net new accounts or leads to target with outbound efforts. One of our customers recently shared in a QBR, against any anticipation of such success for this program, that cold calling to net new accounts identified as A-ranked by Mintigo had now surpassed event sponsorships and white papers as the #1 source of meetings. What's really great here is that they have a limited number of dollars and a limited amount of headcount that they can put behind their marketing campaigns, but being able to actually bring in additional sales resources or refocus people that had previously been calling on lower converting accounts and leads would actually drive significant impact revenue for them. To take this further, actually, for something that I did in my own environment, which I think was really exciting for me, is that I would push those types of lists into digital. So for those of us that are marketers and not sellers per se, this is a great way to create a really hyper-targeted list for your display ads or any of your social media and get those folks to raise their hand and opt in, especially now that everyone's hypersensitive to GDPR and CASL and CAN-SPAM laws. So being able to create a targeted list to serve into your social or your digital or display and then being able to convert those into opt-ins is extremely powerful for your business. This is some crazy numbers, and yes, they are accurate. I know that the initial instinct is that there have to be some commas and zeros in the wrong places. These are actually results from a very large technology reseller customer of ours and show the results from a specific campaign that was already in place once Predictive was layered in. They used both the Mintigo ranks, so the predictive ranks, and also some of the specific attributes or marketing indicators from us. As you'll see here, they had a baseline number of calls of just over 4,500 and put 600 calls in with this hyper-focused predictive list, and the results are off the charts. This is another really great way to test and evaluate whether or not Predictive can work for you or what the impact is that it's making on your business, is to create baseline programs and have a holdout group where you can actually test and measure side by side.
I want to also talk about some unexpected benefits that I've seen from using predictive marketing outside of the normal ones that Erin just talked about, whether it's higher ASP, faster conversion rates, etc. I think these are just really interesting to see these unexpected benefits. So the first one is content gaps. An example that we saw in this is we saw that our buyer persona or buyer types of companies that were really showing buyer intent were from a specific industry. We realized we have no content specific for that industry. So this really helped us expose those content gaps and make sure that we're fixing those. The next one is making savvy investments with channel and campaign analysis. By knowing where your most important accounts are engaging with you, you can use Predictive to actually decrease the quantity of people that you're targeting, but increase the quality. You might even start saving money, like Erin was talking about, since you're not reaching out to the as broad of audience as you were before. The next one is honing in on efficiency of your SDR team by knowing who not to call. Your SDR team is so busy, and so is your marketing team. So constantly prioritizing accounts for your SDR team isn't always doable. So helping your SDR team to decide who not to call with Predictive can really help them focus on the accounts that they should be calling. The next one is supporting product bundling strategy. Which products are most often bundled together, or which accounts should we target with a product bundle campaign? A lot of these questions can be answered with predictive marketing that I had no idea I was going to get from that kind of data. Increasing alignment between sales and marketing. So we all want to live in a world where marketing trusts sales and sales trust marketing. It's all about results. If marketing is passing over leads and sales is constantly closing them, the trust will increase. And if sales is always giving proper follow-up to those leads that marketing is passing over, again, the trust will increase. And with Predictive, that will happen. The last one I want to talk about is identifying customers who are at risk of churn. This might be one of actually the most important unexpected metrics predictive marketing can help identify. Sometimes we don't always know why customers churn, and a lot of times it's because we didn't catch it soon enough and didn't provide the right support. So Predictive can really help identify what accounts are most likely to churn so you can nip that one in the bud and really decrease your churn rate. I'm going to pass it on over to Erin to talk about, if you're interested in predictive marketing, how you as a marketer can get started.
So how can you get started with Predictive? The very first step is always to define your business problem. A lot of people don't know exactly how Predictive works or what exactly to ask of a predictive vendor, but what we always want to do with our customers is just understand what the problem is that they're trying to solve. The most common use cases are things like, I have too many leads and I don't know who to call, I have too few leads, or my conversion rates are really poor. Sometimes they don't even know what their challenges are. They just know it's not working, and that's really where AI can come in. The next thing is to identify the channels and experiences that you want to improve. So if you have a great model that's able to predict propensity to buy, you might choose to use that in sourcing your net new leads or which accounts to target at the top of the funnel. You might also apply that to how to prioritize your leads for your inbound sales team or your SDRs. There are a number of different applications of this from sort of a sales enablement perspective, and then certainly from a nurture perspective, plugging these things into your nurture with Marketo, for example, can allow you to give people a really intimate experience at scale. The third thing is to prepare for measuring success. So every model should be developed to solve a business problem and with a clear understanding of how we're going to evaluate it in production. This is really critical so that you can prove out the value of your investment for your own internal purposes and also be able to spot anything that is working really well and replicate it, or identify things that are not successful and then tune those to improve them. And then the fourth thing is to go. I know this sounds really silly, but it's really easy to get stuck with analysis paralysis or want to go super duper deep into your models and understand every single detail and review the list of all the thousands of marketing indicators and attributes with a large team internally. it's really helpful if you have a simple way that you're willing to at least take an initial action. The way you're going to build credibility internally for this type of technology is to prove out the results. And we're always happy to sit down and really map that out as a matter of partnering with our customers. They've only ever hired marketers to do CS, and it's really a critical thing that somebody understands your problems, can partner with you to develop that entire strategy and then push it live.
Great. Thank you so much, Erin. That was fabulous. We do have a few questions that came in, and looking at them, I think you are definitely going to be able to answer all of these. So the first one we have is Predictive a black box? Sales and marketing at my company don't see eye to eye.
Good question. This is actually what my first impression of Predictive was as a buyer as well. And there have absolutely historically been a lot of solutions on the market that are black box. It's very much a trust me, I've got this. Our data is great. Our scientists are great. Our analysts are great. And that is super duper scary for a marketer, particularly in cases like this person on our webinar who's got a lack of alignment between sales and marketing, which I think is a very common scenario. If anyone ever tells you that there's healthy friction between sales and marketing, it just means that the goals are not clear and aligned between the teams. And I'm always an advocate for anything that can help bring those groups together. So for me, one of the things I think is really critical is that there's transparency. The vast majority of our data is proprietary to us, so we're not beholden to any EULAs or anything like that would keep us from passing it on to our customers. And then since our data is your data, you could use it for scoring, but also enriching your database, using it to segment and nurture, or even passing it on to sales. So when you can tell a sales rep, hey, call this lead, it's an A, that doesn't really help them, right? It helps them prioritize their day, but it doesn't help them know what to say or even what the reason is that that person is so high quality. So what we really love is to use Predictive to say, this lead is an A, and here are 10 characteristics that can inform a thoughtful conversation. You become a hero to your sales team and your buyers too.
Great. Thanks, Erin. Our next question is, my current regression models are working really well. Why do I need Predictive?
Ooh, good question. So let me answer this. So I have built my own regression models in the past as well, put all manner of behavioral and firmographic things into place within Marketo. We have many, many customers that are using either Mintigo Predictive within Marketo or using the two actually joined together. So there's no doubt that a well-developed model based on internal data or even licensed third-party data that you might get from a content syndicator or from a database provider can be really, really strong. But there are a number of major benefits to going with a predictive vendor to support that. First is proprietary data sources. So one of the things our founders come out of counterintelligence, and being able to mine and create trackable data values is really part of our core DNA. And what we love to do is pass that data on to our customers and also put it into the models. So what we see happening a lot is that people say, oh, I know a lot of firmographics. Oh, I know about their web activity. I know about their campaign activity. But they don't have any data on a number of other attributes like job hiring within the company, what's in their tech stack. We even see things like the number of employees in a particular department or the number of images on somebody's website, as well as all the intent that we track. All of those things are really core to developing an effective predictive model. What you don't want to do is have a lookalike that just says, hey, if it looks like this, it must be good. Most marketers have an ability to write fairly proficiently. We probably have, two arms. There's nothing about that that's very, very unique to us, but it does look like the other people doing our work. So being able to see not just what makes people similar to each other, but distinct from the other is really key to an effective model. Another thing would be the multiple modeling methods under the covers. So I mentioned lookalike modeling, which is what most people are familiar with. What we're really looking for is to run a number of different machine learning and data science processes and AI sort of analyses that allow us to validate that what we think we're seeing is in fact what we're seeing. So that's really a key part of working with a predictive vendor, is that there's a way to not just based on what you think looks like the right thing, but actually based on validation is an effective model. A third item would be the agility to spin up models really quickly and decide what warrants further investigation. So the results I showed that were really, really crazy from the calling campaign earlier is actually a customer that has 7 people full-time doing nothing but running every single every campaign, every list, everything in the company runs through Mintigo. It's a very unusual setup that they have so many people that are doing this full-time, but what happened is they realized that the performance is so significantly improved that it's worth literally running, every email blast, every invitation to every webinar, everything goes through a Mintigo model and is evaluated for the perfect list to actually promote that to. So their unsubscribe rates are significantly lower than the norm. Their engagement rates are significantly higher. And for them, they want to actually make that kind of investment, even though they could also spin up models, one person building a model in a matter of minutes. What's really cool about that too is if you have a data science team and you think, oh, I don't need predictive, this really allows you to figure out what those people should be investigating further. So if you say, gosh, I have the DACH region and do I need a separate model for Austria and Germany, instead of somebody spending a week building multiple models to try to figure this out, you could run both of those in a matter of minutes and then decide if you actually want to spend the time to do deeper data analysis or build more targeted positive sets or success criteria to model on. And the fourth thing that would come to mind is really just having an extension of your team. So somebody that's an SME in this and does it every day. Predictive is fairly new. There are people that have done this before and they've been doing this for years, but it, again, as we talked about earlier, was rooms full of PhDs and 7-figure budgets to be able to produce anything. So what's really nice now is to have both a SaaS platform and a set of SMEs, real subject matter experts in predictive, that can be a support and a bolster for the efforts that you have invested in internally.
Great. Thank you, Erin. And we have time for one last question. I think this is an interesting one. It's I've heard that all I need on top of traditional scoring is intent. So what makes predictive different or better than that type of intent data?
Oh, I love that question. So what I would say about this, let me give an example. I am a storyteller. My whole team sort of knows this about me, is I prefer to illustrate with anecdotes. What I think would make sense of this is to tell you a little bit about recently buying a car. So we've talked a lot about intent today, and that's certainly a piece of predictive. It tends to be more of a trigger than it is actually a really foundational part of a model. So the ability to say who is the right fit for me, who's even the right person to speak with if they have intent, is really critical. There's lots of tire kickers out there. There's lots of people that are curious, and that's fine, but there's actually really a sweet spot when it all comes together. So I recently purchased a car, and I was trying to explain this to a colleague of mine, and I said, when I very, very first started this process, I had a 10-year-old vehicle that I had driven when I lived in Seattle and was in the mountains all the time, and now I have an hour-and-a-half commute in California. I had recently been promoted. I'm gainfully employed. I have all of the right things, sort of all of the right fit to be a good buyer for a car. What was really interesting for me is when I began that process, I didn't go to a dealership website. I wasn't looking on a manufacturer's website. I was looking on Consumer Reports and Cars.com and on platforms like that. So my exploration began third party, right? And I was looking at all of these different things that were hopefully going to help me decide what type of car I should buy, and then narrow it down from good fuel efficiency and good handling or whatever that might be, down to some real specifics like what color and do I want a sunroof. And if somebody had reached out to me at that point when I began my research, they would have been a helper. They would have contacted me and said, hey, it looks like you're in the market to potentially be researching a car. I'd love to help you with that research so that when you're ready, you feel really well informed, and maybe I could be a part of that process. I would have felt like that was a really respectful outreach, but it required there to be fit and intent. If they had contacted me 6 months before, I would have unsubscribed, deleted, and blocked their number, right? They would have hit me when I wasn't ready. I would have thought that they were just, batch and blasting, and it wasn't a good time, and I wouldn't have felt like they were really invested in my success. And if they'd contacted me 6 months later, I would have assumed that the dealership that I bought my car from had sold the list, and this person was now, A, behind the 8 ball, but B, they're just kind of a nuisance, right? And it would have felt really impersonal. So from why do you want intent and predictive, this is really a layer of what's the fit, what's the intent, and then also what's the first-party behavior that you might even track in Marketo, right? So if somebody reached out and said, hey, I'm a helper, I'd love to help educate you on how to make a decision about car buying, they would have earned my trust. Then when the time came that I was actually ready to make a purchase, I would have either reached out to them directly, or if my behavior had spiked on a particular vendor's website or a manufacturer or a dealership, that person, if they had had that information, could have reached out and said, hey, it looks like the time is right now. I'm here to help. Let's get this done. I would have been so delighted to give them my money and to have them have my back instead of having to do all of that negotiation with the dealer who I felt like was just sort of seeing me as a number and not as a partner or somebody that they were there to serve. So we really see the different layers of fit and intent and behavior coming in at different stages of the buying cycle, but it's really the aggregation of all of that data together that produces the best results.
Great. Thank you so much, Erin. And that is all we have time for today. If we didn't get to your question, we will try and get to it at another time. I appreciate everyone who joined us today. And remember, we will be sending out the slides as well as recording after the webinar. Thank you and have a great day.